Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. We're going to cover everything. We're going to cut through all the propaganda, give it to you straight from left, right, and center. The opinions are what counts. Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It is Saturday's edition, and we are broadcasting from the great state of California, Santa Barbara County, where we hosted General Mike Flynn's Tour of America, Flynn movie, and we'd also like to welcome our fellow board member, Floyd Brown, from his studios in Anthem, Arizona. Floyd, happy to join you, and I want to introduce my guest here in Santa Barbara County, Lucky Basseri. Lucky, welcome to Schaftlein Report. Quite a setting here for the first show.
Oh, yeah, it is great to be here. It's going to be great, I have a feeling.
Oh yeah, no question about it. Floyd, welcome back to the show. Happy to have you with us today.
Great to be with you, and Lucky, nice to meet you. It looks like you guys are enjoying a little bit of the outdoors there. You almost look like you're sitting at a campfire.
Well, I tell you one thing, where we're broadcasting from here in Santa Barbara County, not too far from the ocean, but you are really in a rural setting. There are roosters, there are cows running around here, there are chickens, there's horses. We're on a 60-acre ranch here. And it was the site of where General Flynn did his movie last night, and it was a fantastic crowd, fantastic event, and we're just really happy with the accommodations here in Santa Barbara. So without any further ado, one thing I wanted to talk about, since we had the advantage of having Lucky with us, I want him to give you some background so that we can talk a little bit about all this garbage going on in our education system. Lucky, you're 16 years old.
Yeah.
But you've been a political activist for a long time. You've spoken over 50 rallies.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the good fortune to meet Lucky at the Tulare event with General Flynn this past November. Got to know each other. I invited him on the show. And one thing we really wanted to focus on, since he's here, he's actually in the school system. Lucky, describe what it's like. You're there. You're not having some adults say, hey, this is what it's like. First-hand account. What's going on in the schools right now?
Yeah, what I'll say is our school systems here in California are a complete mess. They're in shambles. Academic education has been completely thrown out the window for DEI and all this woke crap, frankly. We spend most of our history class learning about how evil of a dictator Donald Trump is. And my pitch teacher recently said that Mike Flynn should be locked up in jail. That is insane. This patriot, 3-star general in jail. That's insane.
So it sounds like you've got a radical leftist is basically teaching. Now, what class is this?
This is history.
History class.
This is teaching us history. We're supposed to know about politics and history and government.
And you got a radical leftist saying that Mike Flynn ought to be in jail and Donald Trump's a dictator.
Yeah. Oh, no, but this might be worse, actually. My English teacher said that Stalin and Mao are not dictators. We were doing a report on authoritarians, leaders throughout history, and she removed Stalin and Mao from the list after thinking, oh, well, they're not actually dictators.
Folks, this is insane, which is why we brought Lucky in here. Floyd, what's your reaction to what you heard? You and I have talked about the education system in this country. Here's a firsthand.
Yeah. Well,
situation.
I have a couple questions for Lucky, actually. Lucky, both of my sons graduated from high school in Santa Barbara. They both graduated from DP and were part of the GATE program that was there at DP. I don't know what school you're going to, but the Santa Barbara schools were actually pretty good up until maybe even 10 years ago. So what has taken that community, which traditionally was a Republican community for years and years with Republican congressmen and Republican leaders in the county, Republican sheriff, what's taken that whole area just off of the cliff and made it so left wing?
Well, I can't speak to Santa Barbara specifically because I'm not from here, but I can say for the state as a whole, this whole phenomenon has started fairly recently. There's a lot of more conservative leaning Democrats and Republicans in offices all around the state. But, The tribalism started roughly 10, 15 years ago, and it's gotten really bad in LA County, where I'm from. We elected recently, 2018, we had a Democrat, someone who's pretty far left, versus someone who's an avowed socialist, wants to destroy the police, and will not prosecute any crime short of murder. He was elected as our district attorney. So,
you're talking about George Gascon.
Yeah.
Listen. I've had personal experiences with speaking at a case involving him. Floyd, just a point of correction. Lucky goes to school in the Santa Monica. Was it
Los Angeles County?
Yeah. L.A. County, and what specific district?
I go to Santa Monica High School.
Santa Monica High School in Los Angeles. So, any confusion?
That's deep behind enemy lines. I can tell you that. So,
I just wanted a point of clarification that Santa Barbara County has not gone blue.
Oh yeah, it has.
Oh really? Yeah, really?
It has gone. It has gone left, but it traditionally was such a conservative area. It's I'm always searching for answers about why these areas that were traditionally Republican are really nice areas, the way they just careen off to the left, because it doesn't make sense, because the policies that are being pursued by the left right now are just not sensical. They are taking our country in a very dangerous situation. The economic policies, whether you're looking at inflation or this trillions and trillions of dollars of spending. I mean, everybody who has a budget, whether it's a business budget or a family budget, you've got to balance the budget. And this whole idea that the government can just spend and never have to be accountable for any of the spending is just, it doesn't even make sense. And so, I'm always trying to process Lucky and Mark. I'm just trying to figure out, is it that a new generation's come to the fore and they don't believe in the time-honored values of having a decent balance sheet, or keeping your checkbook balanced, or being a person of your word? It's these policies are so extreme and so radical and so dangerous that they are causing long-term damages to the golden goose. And the golden goose is America, a country that's so fabulous and has been so wonderful to all of us. We have anybody who's traveled anywhere around the world knows that Americans have just a really special country that they live in. We're fabulous. Even the poor here are fabulously wealthy compared to much of the globe. And we should be grateful for that, and looking at and asking ourselves, how did it become so great, and leaning into the policies that made us such a great place. So Lucky, when you're my age with gray hair, you can sit back and look and say, you know what? This has been a great country for me too. I want the next generation to do even better than our current generation.
Lucky, why don't you respond to Floyd there? Because Floyd's someone who's been a success in media. He's built successful companies. And with the United States, $34.5 trillion in debt, and Joe Biden throwing $2 trillion budget deficits at us year after year. I mean, what are they saying in school? Share with what your teachers are. What are they saying economically about what's going on in the country?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple things to say here. Number one, to answer your question about why California is veered so far to the left, more than 1 million people have left California, predominantly conservatives, who are fed up with it. And they've gone to places like Florida, Texas, free states. Another thing is, you are completely right about this new generation, right? This new generation is being raised in a climate in which conservatism and the old values of the United States of America are being tarnished and destroyed. They look down upon capitalism. They look down upon our republic. They look down upon what made this country great, our individualism, our innovation. They look down upon that. Instead, they prefer statism. That's what the teachers are teaching. They're teaching about socialist ideology, leftist ideology, which is baffling to me. And when it comes to the economy, I will say I have never heard such pro-socialist agendas being pushed outside of maybe MSNBC. It's crazy how far left they've gotten in those schools. I recently attended a meeting of what they call the Democratic Socialist Club on campus, just to see what they're all about. I mean, you can gather from the name, but I went there and I found a bunch of Hamas apologists demanding that we institute a communist revolutionary government, and capitalism is the root of all evil, which is so.
And do they even know about what they're talking about? Because under communism, when Russia moved to communism, millions of people died. When Mao took China to communism, literally tens and hundreds of millions of people died. So, the people starved to death because communist nations couldn't produce enough food for the people to eat. They, much less provide the housing and the clothing and all of the things that we take for granted. Things as simple as these iPhones that we all have, or mobile devices. These didn't come from socialism. They came from the free market system where Steve Jobs could, engineer an amazing product and people could adopt it and had enough money to buy it because they weren't paupers. This isn't true of communist nations, and I don't understand how this have they become so ignorant? Have they become so stupid? Have they become literally what you would call idiots, that they don't understand that they're going to starve to death, they're going to lose what they have, and their parents aren't going to have the money to subsidize them the way that they heretofore have been subsidized.
Well, yeah, you're talking about a lot of upper middle class people who have iPhones and drive Range Rovers and live in 4-bedroom houses, and they're pounding their fists. We must stand for the working class, the poor. They're starving in the streets, and it's just the way they've gotten to this point is they live in such comfort. They don't even realize what the Chinese average population has. What in Cuba or in the USSR or in all of these communist countries, socialist countries. They do not have nearly as much as we do. And they are taking our system for granted because they don't realize that that's what's making us great. They're just living in this echo chamber where all they're hearing all day from their parents, the school system, and social media, where they're getting the majority of their news, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. They are hearing leftism is great. Leftism is going to save us all. We must redistribute the wealth from the evil rich and give it to the poor. And they think they're Robin Hood. That's what they think they're going to be here, is Robin Hood. When in reality, they're not making us all equally wealthy. They're making us all equally broke.
Well, and we're going to do this, folks, with that. Floyd, the issue that you brought up there related to that, and Lucky, what you just talked to related to Palestine, these protests going on around the country, the brainwashing. We're going to take a quick 60-second break, but when we come back, I want to dive into this crazy movement happening across the country, whether it's New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Columbia University. Some states are managing it effectively, others are not. Be back in 60, and we're going to dive into that.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
We've seen pictures on television. Protesters up in the Bay Area, literally taking over the I-80 freeway and the 880 freeway. We've seen people on Columbia University in New York City. We've seen Chicago taken over. We've seen them try it in Florida, and Ron DeSantis and the Florida government would have none of it. You know, these radical leftists that support Palestine, they tried these stunts in Florida, and they were all arrested. And I want to give a shout out here to Columbia University, because under the former president, they probably would have permitted this. But under the new president of Columbia and the administration at Columbia, who, oh, by the way, last week were testifying on Capitol Hill, Columbia arrested these radicals. So, Lucky, here's the question. Having stated that, and Floyd, I want to hear your perspective too. What is possibly driving this belief? Given that Israel lost 1,600 citizens in an attack, and the Palestinians, rightly or wrongly, they have elected Hamas as their leadership.
Yeah.
And what is driving this? Is it anti-Semitism? Is it anti-Israel? I mean, what's the root basic genesis of why? And I don't want to make it a majority because it's not a majority, but why a certain fraction of young people are supporting Hamas?
Right. Well, it's frankly, I'll chalk it up to one factor, and it's TikTok. All right. I have never seen such complete blatant propaganda. I mean, every video for the first couple months after the war was just Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. I'm on there monitoring, because I want to see what's going on there, see what my people my age are thinking. And I saw the dramatic shift in which content shifted so away from just stupid things to Palestine, in taking it specifically from the perspective of Hamas, and reporting death tolls that are reported by Hamas, spreading misinformation. And that's why we're seeing these widespread protests predominantly amongst young people, because they're the ones who are on these platforms. They're the ones who are just sucking up this information, absorbing this information, and internalizing it and thinking, wow, Israel and the United States, they have blood on their hands. They're evil colonizers. They try to make this comparison of Israel to apartheid South Africa, which is completely insane. It's completely false. But that is how effective the propaganda machine is on these places. It's a big, well-funded machine. You can't forget that the top 4 leaders of Hamas are worth a combined $11 billion. So they have the money to fund this. And I'm sure there's other actors involved in this as well, because, TikTok is run by the CCP indirectly. So I've certainly, you can certainly see this anti-Western sentiment has massively exploded the last few months. And I can't say I think it's coincidence. And, you look at these protests at the Golden Gate Bridge, O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Yep. It is just this complete, you're hearing them, they're chanting intifada and jihad and fatwa, which are terms used for complete war and bloodshed. That's their goal here, is they are trying to tear down Western systems. And, you're seeing the bandwagon of the Hamas people and the left wing, the far left. The communists have bandwagon on this, and they're turning it into their little communist revolutionary bands, is what they're pitching what's going on in Palestine too.
Floyd, did you ever think you would see the day where we would see this type of anti-Israeli protest among college students? I mean, to me, it's like the world is upside down. What are your thoughts on what's happening here and how it's being addressed in different locations around the country?
Yeah, it's a very dangerous trend, Mark, and we all should be paying attention, and we should be thinking really hard about what's happening, because when these same protesters yell death to Israel, they often yell death to America. They're kind of, like twin phrases: death to Israel, death to America. And these are, quote, Americans that don't support their own country. They don't support their own system of government. They don't support the Constitution. They don't have a shared community love that has been what's animated America during my life and your life, obviously, because we're about the same age. And it's very dangerous. I think I think that the left often looks for scapegoats. Right now, in the current discussion of foreign policy, it's Israel. I think also the left has been calling out what they call Christian nationalism and trying to make that a scapegoat in the domestic politics right now, saying somehow Donald Trump is supported by Christian nationalists, which is a term that's totally made up. It's never existed until now, and I don't think it does exist except in the mind of some, imaginary college professor that has created it out of whole cloth. But it has a purpose, and the purpose is to create division and to divide people. The great thing about America was it was always, our slogan was "from many one." And when you came here to America, it didn't matter where you came from. You could have come from Europe or South America or Asia. The whole idea was we came together in unity around a set of principles. And those principles are the principles that are embodied first in the Declaration of Independence and then later in our founding document, the U.S. Constitution. And so we came together based on those principles. And now we're getting a disconnect between people that are born here and don't support those documents. And then also, for the first time in really my lifetime, the immigrants that are coming now are coming for different reasons and are looking to be taken care of and are looking to really dismantle America and get what they can. And that's not the way most immigrants came to the U.S. They came because they wanted the American dream. And they wanted to be part of this shared vision because it doesn't exist other places around the globe. Right. In America, all of us, irrespective of where we come from or what our roots are, we can live the American dream if we work hard enough and if we focus and if we do a good job and if we save our money. You always could get ahead in America. But this new generation is disconnected from those, and that includes the immigrants that come here with their hands out and they're asking, not for a job, they're asking for a handout. And it's not sustainable. It just doesn't work. And we've got to close the border. We've got to restore the rule of law, which was one of the things all Americans believed in. We had to have the rule of law. That we had laws, we obeyed them. If we didn't like the laws, well, we could work within the process to change those laws. But as long as they were the law, you obeyed them. And it's now you have these sanctuary cities that say, hey, we're not going to obey the law. You've got all kinds of people that in essence are trying to nullify laws and not follow them. And it's very, very damaging to the fabric of the nation.
Well, you mentioned illegal immigrants, and I got to pose this question to you, Lucky. You're in L.A. County. There's a lot of illegal immigrants going to schools in L.A. County. How do the teachers in your school view the illegal immigrants? I mean, how are they referred to? I mean, education-wise, give me sort of a feel for what's going on. Because we do have laws in this country, whether you're a legal immigrant, an American-born citizen, or an illegal immigrant, you have to be educated. So give us your perspective. Yeah. What is happening in the school system related to the illegals?
Well, in my school system, in my school district, they spend a ton of money for an English learners program, where they're taking all these illegal immigrants and putting them in this program to learn English. But at the same time, they also have to take the other 5 classes. And so you're seeing these people who don't speak any English in class, and it's just, there's a gigantic barrier there. Because obviously, a lot of the teachers do not speak Spanish, and so it creates this divide where, frankly, these children are actually probably losing. They're not gaining anything because they can't learn if you don't speak the language. It's ridiculous. But we're spending all this money for what? And when it comes to what you're saying about how they are attacking the very fabric of our Constitution, of the Bill of Rights, of the Declaration of Independence, of the principles that made America America, the American dream. That is a disturbing truth, is that we have veered so far away from that. They are trying to tear that system down. And, my dad is an immigrant. He came from Iran. He fled when the theocratic regime, which is not dissimilar from Hamas, they're Hamas's largest state sponsor. He fled from that regime when they took power. And he came here, got his college degree in engineering, opened a company at 28, and employs dozens of people. And he's a productive member of society who chased that and lived and is now living that American dream. All right. And that is the beauty of it. But, I fear now that American dream may be viable for my generation because of the efforts of the far left now that we're seeing. They are crushing that dream. They're crushing the livelihood of America. And we have a very short window to get it back, and we're living it right now. This is our one and only shot to reclaim this country. I really think that.
Well, I think you're right about that, Lucky. And with people like you and your generation, we have to fight the fight as conservatives, and we have to push back on this and resist these far leftists. Yeah. Listen, Floyd, we're going to be back in 1 minute. And when we come back, folks, we're going to talk about what's happening with Donald Trump and the trial in New York. We're going to talk about some of the news yesterday about the funding for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. And we're going to hit a hot button of other issues, too. Be back in 60 seconds.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
Thanks for getting back to us, folks. Now, listen, there's a lot happening in that Donald Trump trial in New York. And Floyd, to me, this is just a travesty of the legal system being used to try to silence the president and former president and his campaign. While Joe Biden is going out in Pennsylvania talking about cannibalism with his uncle, who was shot down over Guinea and died in the Pacific Ocean, to basically advising the Israelis not to move on their own city of Haifa. Biden's out there stumbling, bumbling. He's barely coherent, and yet he's getting praised for being out among the people, while Donald Trump is stuck in a blatantly partisan New York courtroom on trumped-up charges that an overwhelming majority of Americans could not care less about. Floyd, give me your perspective on the lawfare that's going on here, and then Lucky, follow Floyd. Let's get some opinions out on this.
Yeah, well, we're at a very dangerous moment, Mark. A dangerous moment because America is becoming like a lot of these third world countries where the current leaders actively use the system to suppress and stop their opponents. And it's new to America. We've always had fair and free elections up until just recently, but it is definitely election interference when judges and out of control prosecutors are attacking the what is in essence the Republican nominee and tying them up in court, trying to forcing them to sit there day after day. I did like it that Donald Trump got out and went up to Harlem. I don't know if you saw all the Black Americans that came together and came out to see him, and they were chanting 4 more years. I think in a strange way, the left may be igniting forces that they don't understand because Americans believe in fair play. We believe in treating people with equality. And it's obvious that this government is not treating Donald Trump the same that it treats Joe Biden. All you have to look at is the whole question of these documents that, clearly Joe Biden had all kinds of confidential and secret documents stuffed in a closet, in boxes next to the Corvette in his garage. None of it was secured. Donald Trump had boxes in a secure location at a secret Service protected compound, Mar-a-Lago, under lock and key, and they're somehow trying to prosecute Donald Trump when they said, oh, hey, Joe Biden's too old and too feeble to be able to go through that kind of a prosecution. So you just see so clearly and so evidently the double standard that exists. But I think they're failing. The polls say they're failing. The polls say Donald Trump is up. They say he's going to win the election if it were held today. And, I think people see this for what it is. But even though it's not working, it's still deeply wrong, Mark. And every American should be offended by it. And we've got to root this kind of attitude out, or America will not be the kind of country it's always been in the past. The wonderful country that's provided so much for each and every one of us.
Floyd, I agree with every single thing you just said there. You're spot on that. And again, it seems to me that every time they pull these stunts, and again, we're not sure how this is going to shake out, but Trump's trials actually, they pick jurors, they pick alternates. It's actually going to start on Monday. So we're going to get a better glimpse into it. But I've had the same perception as you. Every time they do this stuff, Trump gets stronger because the vast majority of Americans, whether you're Democrat, Independent, Republican, feel that something's just not right here. And only the hardcore leftists, I think, are the ones really, really pushing this. Lucky for
think about this, Mark. I'm sorry. Let me just make one last point. So this current trial is basically based on a technical violation of Federal Election Commission law, which normally was never criminalized and which, you pay a fine and move on. And in fact, Hillary Clinton, who paid for the Steele dossier and then mislabeled it as legal services when it was actually opposition research, and she mislabeled it. She was fined for that, and life went on for Hillary Clinton. This is essentially the same thing. They're saying that money went to this Stormy Daniels and that it was somehow not correctly noted on the Federal Election Commission report. And so here's another example, just like with the documents where they didn't hold Biden accountable, but they hold Trump accountable. They didn't hold Hillary accountable for the very same fact set that they're currently holding Donald Trump accountable for. And, there's a very famous book that came out called 3 Felonies a Day. And I don't know if you've ever heard the old slogan, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. And
yes.
The truth is that if a prosecutor wants to go after any American, and that even includes you, Lucky, even though you're young, the truth is if they tear through your life enough, there's so many laws out there that they're going to find you did something wrong and they can hold you accountable. There's too many laws, too many prosecutors, and too much litigation in America.
Well, let me respond to one point, and then, Lucky, I'm going to turn it over to you. We have 2 people at Patriot TV who had to deal with this, both General Michael Flynn. Again, folks, if you get a chance to see the movie, please. It is an unbelievable movie. A man who was persecuted by his own government, and our own Roger Stone, who's at the network. So, I mean, we've experienced it with 2 of our key people here. Lucky, from your perspective, okay, give me your thoughts on this, because I know you haven't had a lot of experience in a courtroom, but you're living this firsthand. A lot of people your age, what are they thinking about Trump on this trial in New York?
Well, I think this is one thing that a vast majority of the country agrees on. This is ridiculous. This is insane. I think that slogan you mentioned earlier, find me the man, I'll show you the crime. Look at Peter Navarro, Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, Roger Stone, General Michael Flynn, Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, and so many more. They have just attacked these key members of their opposition. That's their only crime, is speaking out against the left. it's truly mind-boggling to me that we've gotten to this point where it is so blatant now that they are criminalizing things that have never been criminalized ever before in history, especially in a period of complete decriminalization of every crime. And New York City is one of the few places in the United States which is has as left-wing crime policy as LA. All right, you can get away with anything there pretty much. And my question is, why, if they're charging Trump with all this, why are they not going after any of these illegals who commit a crime by first coming into this country, and then, for instance, those ones that beat up a cop in New York City? That's the same city, and they're not charging those people, but they're going to charge President Trump for mislabeling something? That is crazy. It's just an abomination. It's a miscarriage of justice, and it makes me really lose a lot of faith in our institutions, our time-honored sacred institutions that have held up for 240 years. That is what they're representing. 240 years of free and fair elections, free and fair justice, in a free country where your rights are protected, where your rights are not only are not only allowed but are enshrined in the Constitution.
Well, it's an interesting thing, Lucky. You mentioned the illegal immigrants coming over and how they're not prosecuted. States such as Texas, Arizona, handful of others, state of Florida and Texas in particular, they're taking actions to prevent illegal immigrants from crossing that border coming into their state. Greg Abbott in Texas has done an outstanding job. I mean, some of the initiatives he did effectively stopped illegal immigration. And then what does our federal government do? They turn around and sue the state of Texas. I mean, here we have a situation, what we were talking about earlier in the show. What's upside down is right side up. White's black, black is white. It's insane what's happening. You have men playing on women's college basketball teams, and it's being sanctioned by the parties that be. And I'm sitting here saying, this is insane. We're suing states who are trying to protect the United States, who are keeping illegal immigrants out, blocking them, if you will. States are being sued over how they're handling transgenderism. Where the state of Idaho and a handful of others rejected these crazy radical left-wing moves on whatever they're called, trans blockers. I mean, I look at this and see, like we talked about earlier in the show, these radical leftists, death to America. The only thing I can give the Biden administration credit for, and we don't give them credit for a lot because they screw so many things up, but even they disavowed those people shouting death to America. So, Floyd, I'll send it back to you here. I want to talk about these, what's happening with these poll numbers, because we're getting shifts all throughout this election season. Up until about 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was leading in every swing state. Then got tied up in more lawfare. Biden actually caught up to him a little bit. Pennsylvania, slight lead. But polling out today and yesterday showing Donald Trump leading 6 of the 7 swing states. Now, I know it's in flux, but when you factor in Kennedy, Cornel West, Jill Stein, and a lot of people say, Mark, Jill Stein, Cornel West. Jill Stein, 40,000 votes in Michigan was part of the difference Donald Trump won in 2016. Floyd, give me your interpretation of these polls right now, the state of the race, and what can we believe and not believe when it comes to all this polling?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to understand that I've been involved in politics for 40 years, and I've had a saying that I've repeated many times, and that is 24 hours can be an eternity in politics, because things can change in 24 hours based on something happening, something being revealed, something showing up on the scene, a candidate making a big mistake. So that said, you have to realize it's still relatively early. But if I was a betting person, I would definitely put the odds with Donald Trump for a couple of different reasons. One is the weakness in the Biden numbers and the weakness in the economy, I myself, I went to Costco yesterday, and I go to Costco about once every 2 months. I fill up a cart, and I buy a couple of steaks, a couple of chickens, maybe pick something else up on one of the other aisles, and yesterday my cart was pretty full. But when I got to the checkout counter, I gasped because I spent over $1,000 for one cart at Costco. And the truth is I don't know how people are making it. I'm older and I've been successful in my life. So, I have some resources in order to pay that $1,000. But it wasn't, Mark, like I was, buying anything that extravagant. I bought some hamburger patties and chips and salsa and the same kind of food everybody else buys. Olives. I mean, my cart it wasn't unusual. In the past, that cart may be $250, $300, maybe $400, but I have to admit the inflation is really hitting the food sector hard, and it's getting more and more difficult to be able to afford the groceries that a family needs to live. The other thing is energy. The gasoline prices have just rocketed once again. Now Joe Biden was able to empty the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and he lowered prices for the last year, but that reserve is empty, and it's not like he's going to be able to keep pumping oil out of it indefinitely because he's drained it. And so as a result of that, if we get some kind of an oil shock, Mark, it's going to have a huge impact on people's wallets because, people have to drive to work and they have to go places, and Americans can't all just climb on the bus. If we all tried to climb on the bus together, there wouldn't be enough buses. So,
Floyd, you are spot on, Floyd, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we got to take a break right now. But I'm going to share this with you folks. When we come back, Lucky and I talked before the show about what are the important issues for young voters, and he's going to share those perspectives with you. And folks, it may shock you. The same things that are important to you and me, maybe a little different in Lucky's generation. Back in 60 seconds.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
And we're back here in Santa Barbara. Lucky, Floyd was just talking about $1,000 bills at Costco, buying basic stuff. You and I talked a little bit about before the show about what were the important things for people your age.
Yeah.
So you've got the forum. Let's share that.
Well, when I'm my age, I'm in high school now. So this is when kids people my age start to become a little bit more independent. They start driving. They start, having to buy gasoline. They start purchasing their own stuff, going to the store, that sort of thing. And so when they're looking around, they're thinking, oh my God, if my parents can't afford this stuff, how am I supposed to afford this stuff? Today, after this Iran-Israel thing, oil is now up to $90 a barrel. It is absurd how much things cost today. And so I will say that is one of the top issues that wouldn't think someone my age would think about, but they do. They think about the economy because now it directly affects them. It affects how much gas they can get when they're driving their car, what food they can buy. If they want to buy a video game, can they afford that? That's what I think about now. And a lot of them actually, this is interesting. You wouldn't think about this at all. A lot of them are investing in stocks today. There's been this new trend where, you try out investing. And a lot of them, I have a lot of friends who have just seen dismal losses, hundreds of dollars, and even in a few cases, $1,000, $2,000 for my friends who went in really big. That is massive losses on their part. All right. And that is money that they're not going to get back quickly, if at all. And so, it is really the economy. And then that is one of their top issues, the healthcare, the cost of healthcare, that is major to them. But you look at the issues that the left wants you to think they care about, and they want you to think about climate change and gun control and all this stuff. It's way down there. It doesn't even register. Whereas when you look at issues such as crime, inflation, the economy, even immigration, that is important to my generation, because they are feeling the impact just as much as everyone out there listening.
Well, I got to tell you, that doesn't surprise me, because when I hear this garbage coming out of the left wing, everything's climate change. Yeah, we need to change our entire way of living because of climate change. It drives you nuts. And I keep hearing people say, well, this is what younger people care about. No, they really don't. And we talked about it. You actually told me you surveyed people within your own age group. These are people who are sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school. And what did they talk about? They talked about employment, inflation, job security, illegal immigration, housing. How are they ever going to be able to afford a house? Corruption in Washington. Pretty sharp to be able to, deal with something like that. Gun violence, which happens all across neighborhoods, all across the country. What were the two things that people talked about the least? Climate change and abortion. Now, the Democrat left-wing media wants everybody to think, well, there's not a woman in America that's going to vote for Donald Trump because of this abortion stance. Baloney. No truth to that whatsoever. But I'll tell you, folks, listen to what he's saying, because this garbage you're being fed by the mainstream media, which is why Patriot.tv is doing as well as it is because we're telling what people are really thinking out there. And this stuff, this liberal methodology and the way they try to brainwash, people like Lucky, thank God they can't brainwash you. You spoke at 50 events among conservatives or more. So again, we're really proud to have you on here today. I want to go to a couple other stuff. We got about maybe, 7-8 minutes left. All right. The election coming up right now. What are the people you're talking to? I know you're a little younger. You can't quite, you're 2 years from voting. But I know you talk to a lot of juniors, seniors, and people who are going to be going, freshmen in college. Are they going to get out and vote? And where are those loyalties right now?
Well, I will say, I think the best thing the Biden administration has done, and it has moved the country to the right. All right. The United States of America has, I think the vast majority of people out there they've seen the complete and utter failure of the Biden administration, and they can't wait for a Trump second term. Even among people in my very, very, very liberal area, you see more. I think that you're going to see maybe Trump reach 10-15% of that student body, when in 2020 it was 8%. I think you could see even 100% increase on that number of people who were supporting Trump in my district and I think schools across America, just because of they're getting older. They're waking up into the real world, and they're seeing, oh my God, it's not sunshine and rainbows. This is a disaster, and we need to mitigate it as soon as possible. 3 years of Biden administration, 3 years of war, the Afghanistan failure, the Ukraine crisis, Israel versus Gaza, and now Israel versus Iran, and God forbid another one starts during this time period. It's just totally insane to me, and people my age see that, because think about it. If America gets dragged into a wider global conflict, it's going to be us on the front lines.
Oh, there's no question about it, Lucky. And when you think about it, folks, under Donald Trump, peace and prosperity. There was still border crossings, but nowhere near what it is right now. A fraction of what was happening then. Remain in Mexico policy, tried to build a border wall. Relatively low interest rate. The economy doing quite well. Crime was not at the level it is now. We didn't see the corruption that it's blatant in the Biden administration. We didn't see all this talk about trans this and transgender that. And, it was America under Trump. And I think even people that say, God, I like his policies, but I can't stomach that man's personality. I think when it comes down to, well, can I stomach Trump's policies versus voting for Joe Biden? I mean, come on, folks. The other day, weren't you just like cringing when you saw Biden standing there literally in the course of a couple minutes? He went from talking about how cannibals were eating his uncle who died, serving this country in World War II when there were 4 people in his plane. 3 of them were killed, 1 survived, and the 3 that perished in the Pacific Ocean, not with cannibals, over New Guinea. But you're hearing him make up stories, and he makes it up constantly. Then he goes in and he's so misdirected. He gets Haifa confused with Rafah. Rafah is in Palestine. Haifa is a city in Israel. And he tells the Israelis not to move on Haifa. It just brought just a gasness over the internet and social media sites. What's Biden talking about the Israelis attacking their own city? Now, did he get it confused? Yes. He's 81, and he's not getting any younger, as all the rest of us. But can you imagine having a guy who would be 82 when he's inaugurated for a second term? He'd be 86 by the time he's done. Folks, our country cannot afford to elect an octogenarian who is literally losing his marbles. He has a hard time getting off a stage. They have to direct him which way to go. So, Lucky, when I look at these choices here, and look, we're pro-Trump. I make no bones about it. Yes, does he have his faults? Of course he does. But having had the privilege of seeing Mr. Trump in person the last couple of weeks at Mar-a-Lago, and folks, when Floyd talked about Secret Service, boy, I'm telling you, they are over that place. As a former president, you get some pretty serious Secret Service. Believe me, that place is secure. So the point I'm bringing up here is you look at the frailties of Joe Biden. Trump's got his issues. But when you look, the problems we are incurring under Joe Biden, these massive debts, this incredible spending. And people say, well, like Floyd was mentioning, heck, the economy's clipping along pretty good. And, certain things are okay, but unless you're working 2 or 3 jobs, most people can't catch up. So, look, I'll submit to you, when you throw $2 trillion extra dollars in, which is what he's spending beyond what we take in, and throw in, since he's become president, 8 to 10 million illegal immigrants. Well, you got to feed them, you got to house them, you got to do something with them. It's a wonder that the economy could be doing better.
Oh, yeah. It's just complete fabrication of numbers. The economy is, well, you guys can see it. Every time you go to the store, prices are going up. I'm seeing it every time I go to the store. I'm looking at the things I used to buy and things I purchased. They have gone up $2-3. This is basics, like random junk snacks, generally speaking, and other food I like. It's just mind-boggling to me that people can actually sit there and say, no, the economy's fine. The economy's fine, guys. You're all doing great. When we know that's just not the case. Frankly, now is not the time to take on all these millions and millions of illegals and send all this foreign aid out to Ukraine and all these other countries. We don't have the money. It's time to cut spending, cut taxes, and give the American people relief. Also, when it comes to Biden's feeble-minded self, his mental state, I keep hearing him. He keeps confusing presidents with each other. Yeah. He said the president of Egypt was the president of Mexico, and he said the president of Mexico was the president of. He said called him Gaddafi.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, folks, we got about a minute left. First of all, Lucky, I want to thank you for coming on Schaftlein Report here.
Anytime.
And folks, the setting here, it was fantastic. General Flynn had his big event last night for the movie here in Santa Barbara, California. A great host. I'll tell you what, there was more patriotism. You could just feel it last night. The love and the respect for that man, General Flynn, here in Santa Barbara County, California. And, we had a setting here. We literally, I'm not kidding you, folks. You might have heard it in the background. We've got horses, we got cows, we got deer, we got everything here. But I wanted to really, really thank the people who hosted us here. It was fantastic. And, I cannot say enough good things. If you get a chance, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, go to General Flynn, FlynnMovie.com. That's FlynnMovie.com. We'll be talking about it on Patriot.tv all the time. If it comes to an area near you, take advantage of the opportunity to see it. It is about General Flynn's life, how he served his country, what the government did to him to try to take him down, and in the end, it was redemption. So lucky to that teacher that wanted to throw Flynn in jail. Boo! We don't want that. Folks, thanks for watching. Great setting, great hospitality here in Central California. We wish you all the best. Have a great week coming up. And we will be back next weekend with another special edition of Schaftlein Report. See you next weekend.